We just landed in Antarctica, and we're going to survive the next 48 hours here. We're literally at the bottom of the globe at the coldest place on Earth. Can't wait to freeze to death. First, we need to trek down the mountains to get some protection from the wind. And while we're doing that, I'm going to tell you some interesting facts you don't know about Antarctica. Time doesn't work here. Let me explain. It is so far south that all time zones meet here in the South Pole. So technically, every time zone is correct in Antarctica. And because no one lives here permanently, there's no official time zone. Just choose the time zone that you like. It's as simple as that. So come to Antarctica to forget about time. The hard part about Antarctica is the sun never goes down, so you don't know when it's night or not. A common problem in Antarctica is extreme weather blowing away your tent. You've got to cut some snow blocks to secure the tents from the wind. So we're going to use these ice blocks to build a wall and keep our camp safe, because it really dropped 20 degrees since we got here. And in case you're wondering how you eat in the most remote place on the planet, first you boil water, then you pour the boiling hot water. And then, in 10 minutes, you have food. And that is how you eat in Antarctica. There are two very important things you need to take care of in Antarctica. Number one, in Antarctica, you would think you could just pee in the snow, but you can't. So you have to pee in a bottle and hold onto it until you get out. It is negative 20 degrees, and the worst part of Antarctica is that a giant blizzard would randomly sweep through, and your skin would literally start freezing. Number two, before you can leave your tent in Antarctica, you need long pants, a long-sleeved shirt, a second pair of pants, a third pair of pants, a jacket, another jacket for your jacket, a ski mask, gloves, and another glove for your gloves and goggles so your eyeballs don't freeze. And despite all of this on, you can still get frostbite. According to the news, this is why frostbites happen and how to protect yourself. But first, subscribe or I take your pet.
And basically what's happening is that your body is going to try and protect you. And so when you go out in the cold, it shuts off the circulation to your fingers and your toes. Your nose will be exposed, your ears will be shut off as well. And that's trying to keep the core temperature so that you survive.
Okay.
Now, unfortunately, what happens is that the skin starts to freeze. And so all those little water that's inside the cells become crystals. And so that's why the first thing that'll happen is that your finger gets very hard and it'll go white. So initially...
Stop for just a second. So this is what happens when the body's exposed to these extremely cold temperatures. How many minutes are we taking? How quickly does this happen?
Yeah, it's interesting. The advisories say 10 minutes, but we've had people where they're outside, let's say just pumping gas, for example, and they can start feeling their fingers because you're now touching metal. So now I think the warning is no exposed skin at all outside, because basically as soon as the circulation stops, there's no heat. And so now water will just crystallize as ice. And so therefore it can begin actually quite quickly.
Okay, so what do you watch for?
So basically what we do is we want to check for the color, but most of us, we don't take off our gloves to stare at our fingers, right? But the basic color will be, first of all, it's normal color.
Well, let's
then
bring
it
in
goes
some pictures
red.
here, because we actually have some pictures. I hope there's
of
people being treated of frostbite, but we might actually see some signs here of what it actually, there we are there. Well, there's the aftermath of this, you see. Right? But, so this is the aftermath. So let's ignore these just for a moment here. So give us some tips as people are going to be exposed in the next couple of days to these extreme temperatures, how to be attentive to protect ourselves from this extreme cold.
Yeah, best is to stay out if you can, but let's say you have to go out. Dress in multiple layers, because the more heat you can trap in your core, then the more you can send out to your fingers and toes and things like that. Number two is mittens are better. So you know those snowmobile ones that are waterproof and things like that, because then your fingers are together and they're not going to lose as much heat. And then finally, no exposed skin at all. So forget about the 10 minutes or anything, no exposed skin at all, meaning your face as well. So cover up if you're going to be out there.
Make sure you are roped together with your companions if you walk across the ice. Any single person slipping into a crevasse will then probably not fall far. Don't look down too much if you are unused to abseiling. Your legs turn to jelly at the sight of even a 10-meter 30 ice FT. Despite the difficulties and dangers, most of those who have ever overwintered in Antarctica agree that the winter is the best time to be there, and is why they wanted to be there in the first place. It allows experiencing some exciting, adventurous experiences that are just not available elsewhere. The harsh beauty of an Antarctic winter is like no other, and you get a chance to see the seasons develop and change gradually. The thing I was most excited about for this trip was the wildlife, especially penguins, because Antarctica is home to some of the largest penguin colonies in the world, and it did not disappoint. Every single shore landing had penguins. We saw all different types. We saw chinstrap penguins, which are named for the obvious. We saw Adelie penguins, and then the most common penguin. The most magical thing is happening right now. We're sailing in this area where we're surrounded by giant icebergs and mountains, and it's snowing the lightest, fluffiest snowflakes, and we're surrounded by whales. They're in every direction. I couldn't have dreamed up a more beautiful setting with such incredible conditions around us. One of the most difficult things to deal with is the isolation from the rest of the world, though this can also have its own advantages in that you are largely left to your own devices work-wise, maybe alone or part of your small team, depending on what your job is. Many of the advantages or disadvantages of spending any length of time in Antarctica are a matter of perspective. What some will see as a great opportunity will be regarded as a form of torture for others. But as you can see, we're having fun. There are two aspects to surviving in Antarctica in the wintertime: the physical world of the extreme climate outside and amongst the station buildings, and the mental world inside your head, as you deal with the isolation and somewhat institutionalized way of life that communal living inevitably leads to. Sleep difficulties can arise as there becomes no clear natural indicator of the passage of time. The phrase "big eye" is what we use to describe the insomnia that arises from continuous daylight in the summer. And in case you're wondering how we got to the bottom of the globe, the adventure of Antarctica begins long before you get there. First, you have to get to Ushuaia, Argentina. It is definitely an adventure hub. There are a lot of really cold things you can do launching from the city, and it is known as the gateway to Antarctica. But before you get to Antarctica, you have to cross the Drake Passage. The Drake Passage is the body of water between the southernmost tip of South America and the South Shetland Islands of Antarctica. It is known to have the roughest sea waves in the world, and the stretch we are going to be crossing is nearly 600 miles. And now we're back to where the video started, in Antarctica.